Today I want to start looking at what is NLP under the hood and how can you really start to use it in your life. A lot of the videos that I've produced so far have been tools and tips and techniques. Some of that's come from NLP, some has come from the wider personal development world. And I've packaged it together into short, bite-sized chunks that hopefully have been useful to you. But that isn't what NLP is underneath the hood. And I think I've hinted at this before, but let's get explicit and let's actually bring it out to the open and talk about it. That the tools and the techniques are not NLP. They are things that were created using NLP. And at the heart of it, certainly my belief and my experience of this is that NLP is an attitude and it's a way of being in the world. And you could even say that NLP is a mindset. And it's a mindset, a way of being, an attitude, however you want to describe it, that if you choose to adopt it and you go through life with it, then your life will be easier and smoother and you'll tend to get better results in everything that you do. At the very heart of NLP is something called the NLP presuppositions. Now, a lot of people have not come across the word presuppositions before, so actually I think a more useful word would be to say NLP principles, the underlying concepts of what NLP is all about. Now, something that's very important to talk about is that NLP is non-dogmatic. And let me explain what I mean by that. Dogmatic is usually a word that's applied to religions. And I just want to make it clear here that for the purpose of these videos, I'm not expressing any opinions about religion at all. If you've got opinions about religion, that's great, but that's not what we're talking about here. With most religions, there are certain things that if you want to be part of that religion, that you have to accept are true. They're non-negotiables, basically. So most religions have got a holy book, and most religions have a God, or sometimes more than one God. And if you want to be part of those religions, you have to accept the holy book and you have to accept those gods. It's non-negotiable. NLP is not like that at all. The principles that we're talking about here, nobody's even claiming that they're true. And certainly nobody's claiming that they're true 100% of the time. What we are claiming is that, and we are being collectively people who buy into NLP as a concept, as a way of being, what we are claiming is that if you go through life acting as if these principles are true, then your life will work better. Let's look at something that it's probably better to accept as being true, even though it may not be objectively true all of the time. And that is that people are good. Now, it'd be very easy to argue that that's not true because there are people who do terrible things. We all know that. However, let's look at two separate mindsets here. One is the mindset that most people are good, but not everybody. If we go through life with that attitude, it's very easy to be noticing the bad things in people. If we go through life with the attitude that people are good, we're going to be looking out for the good things in people. And when we're looking out for them, we might encourage that behaviour. Now, it's probably true to say there are examples of people who've done terrible things at one point in their life, and then later on they've turned things around and done good things. If when they were doing bad things, people's attitude towards them were you're a bad person, that's not going to encourage the good behaviour. Whereas if we hold the attitude towards them that actually you're a good person, you're just doing some bad stuff at the moment, we're more likely, I'm not saying it's going to happen, we're more likely to be encouraging what's accepted as being good behaviour. I hope that example was clear. I have no way of knowing whether it was or not. And I've just exposed what is actually a bit of a flaw in trying to talk about NLP in this way. And that is, what we're talking about here is concepts. And I have no feedback from you whether what I'm saying is clear. If we were in a workshop and I was confusing you with what I was saying, then I'd be able to pick that up in your body language. And more importantly, if we were in a workshop talking about this, then we'd be having a discussion about it rather than me just broadcasting ideas at you. Because I said earlier on that NLP is not dogmatic, but if you just accept everything that I say here, then it almost does become a dogma. At the end of this video, I'll go through some ways that you can actually start to use this without having to accept everything that I say as being true. Not quite as beneficial as being in a workshop together, but hopefully we'll have some of those benefits. So what we're going to do for the rest of this series, in a minute I'm going to talk about one of the NLP principles, and then over the next videos I'm going to talk about some more of them, and then at the end of it we'll do a wrap-up video where we can talk about, now that you've got them as a package, how can you use them, where and when are they beneficial. So here's the first principle we're going to talk about. And if you're a student of personal development, as I know that you are if you're watching these videos, then you will have heard this in one shape or form before. The reason I've picked on this one first is that because you've come across the concept before, it's just easy for us to talk about it. And the principle says, there is no failure, only feedback. There is no failure, only feedback. And I'm going to use the example that I know you've heard lots of times before of Thomas Edison when he was inventing the light bulb. And the story famously goes that Thomas Edison tried lots and lots of experiments and wasn't getting very far until eventually he invented the light bulb. And a reporter said to him at the end of all this, how did you keep going when you failed 10,000 times? And Edison said, and I'm sure you know this, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I successfully found 10,000 ways not to invent the light bulb. Now, what would have happened if Edison believed in failure? What would have happened after his experiments hadn't worked 10 times, 20 times, 50 times, 100 times? And whether the numbers of 10,000 are true or not, it's not important. What is important is that most people would have given up. Most people would not have done what Edison did. And the reason that he was able to keep going was because of his mindset. His mindset that there was no failure. All he was getting was feedback on what he was doing. Another key principle of NLP is that before you do anything, know your outcome. Know what it is that you want to achieve. And in Edison's case, he wanted to invent a light bulb, a piece of glass that you plug it into electricity and it lit up. He knew exactly what he wanted. And every time that something didn't happen in the way that he wanted it to, all that was feedback that the way he was going about it was not giving him the correct results. And it could be, there could be a few things that go on with this no failure, only feedback. One is that you need to give it more time, that maybe what you're doing is actually the right thing, but you need to do it for longer. Or it could be that actually what you're doing is not the right thing in the first place. So I'm guessing that you've probably already got this as part of your mindset anyway. But to what degree? If something doesn't go the way that you wanted it to, and I almost use the words there if something goes wrong, and if I'm using those words if something goes wrong, it indicates to me that I don't have this fully integrated into my mindset yet, because if I did, then the idea of something going wrong just doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is I know what I wanted to happen, it didn't happen, so I've got some feedback. And that's the kind of level that we want to integrate this to. How deep is this integrated for you? And it's perfectly okay that if you don't get the result that you want to, if you have to remind yourself, if you have to say to yourself, you know, it's okay, it's not failure, it's just feedback, I need to do something different. That's okay. But imagine, what would it be like when you, in a situation where you didn't get the results that you wanted, if it never even occurred to you that it's failure, if the concept of failure doesn't exist for you at all? How would that make your life different? So what I think I'd like you to get from this today, if the only thing that you get is a reminder that there's no failure, there's only feedback, if it's just a reminder for you, that's a great thing. What would be even better if you were to spend some time thinking about this? And if you want to get really good with NLP, you need to do a lot of thinking. You can't learn NLP from books. You can't even learn NLP on an NLP training course. You learn NLP when you think about what you have learned and how it works in your life. Now, if we were in a workshop situation, I would introduce this as a concept. There's no failure, only feedback. and we'd discuss it. You might ask, well, what about in this situation? And then I'd probably say to you, well, what do you think? And we'd have a discussion around it. We can't do that in this medium. I am broadcasting to you. But you can start to think about these things yourself. You can start to think about, do I believe that? Or is it just something that sounds good? Where are situations in my life where, yep, that's absolutely true? Where are situations in my life where perhaps I don't believe this so much? But actually what would happen if I did adopt a different mindset? And just kind of start to explore this as a concept in your own life. And just to be aware of how deeply it is ingrained. So I hope that this has been useful to you. I have no idea how this will have come across. I was speaking more off the cuff than I have done in a lot of the videos up to this point. A lot of them, although they've not been scripted, I've had a lot more idea of what the structure was going to be. I've been trying to do this more as I would do in a workshop situation, but the difference is I've not had the feedback, I've not had the people looking confused or people getting light bulb moments, and I've not had people saying, that wasn't very clear, can you explain it again? But by doing it in this way, in some ways this might be good because it might encourage you to go away and think about what I've said, because these are really useful principles. And I genuinely believe that the principles of NLP, if we take them and we integrate them into our lives, that they will make our lives better. I hope you get the same experience, and I'll see you soon for the next part of the series.